This is News Bits on Fuxion TV. Here are the headlines. Kenya orders Somali refugees back to camp. Charles Blay Gouda arraigned at the International Criminal Court. Egypt's military chief joins presidential race. Nigerian federal government seeks Abacha's $550 million loot from the U.S. Bahamas appoints 24-member reparations committee. These and more when we return. Stay tuned, we'll be back in a minute. Hello and welcome to News Bits on Fuxion TV. I'm Nika Roberts. The United Nations Human Rights Commissioner has condemned an Egyptian court's decision to sentence to death 528 supporters of ousted President Mohamed Morsi. According to UN human rights spokesman Rupert Colville at a news briefing in Geneva, the mass imposition of the death penalty after a trial rife with procedural irregularities is in breach of international human rights law. He further said the exact charges were against each defendant were unclear as they were not read out in court, and that not all defendants had a lawyer. Defense lawyers said that they did not have proper access to their clients and that the court did not consider evidence presented on their behalf. The defendants were found guilty Monday of charges relating to an attack on a police station in Minya in August. Another 683 Morsi supporters went on trial at the same court on Tuesday. They include the Muslim Brotherhood's general guide, Mohammed Baidi, and the chairman of its Freedom and Justice Party, Saad Al-Katatni. There has been widespread condemnation of Monday's decision by the Minya Criminal Court to sentence 528 people to death, and this is the biggest mass death penalty handed out in Egypt's modern history. Charles Blay Gouda, an ally of Ivory Coast's former president Laurent Gbagbo, made his first appearance at the International Criminal Court (ICC) on Thursday. Mr. Blay Gouda, a former minister, has been charged with committing crimes against humanity, including rape, murder, and persecution during clashes that followed the 2010 election when Mr. Gbagbo refused to concede victory to his rival, Alassane Ouattara. Prosecutors at the court accused him of being an indirect co-perpetrator for these crimes. Mr. Gouda has denied all charges, including accusations that he led a militia. Mr. Blay Gouda was the head of the Young Patriots, an organization of Gbagbo loyalists that was blamed for a campaign of violence against those seen as Mr. Ouattara's supporters. About 3,000 people lost their lives in the skirmishes that followed. Mr. Gbagbo, who was captured at the end of the fighting in April 2011 by French and UN-backed fighters supporting Ouattara, has since been in the ICC's custody and awaits trial for responsibility for rapes, murders, persecution, and inhuman acts. All urban-based Somali refugees in Kenya have been ordered to move into designated camps in a bid to curb attacks by militant Islamists. Interior Minister Joseph Ole Lenku issued the order recently, citing emergency security challenges. Kenyans have been asked to report any refugees or illegal immigrants outside the overcrowded camps, Dadaab in the east and Kakuma in the northwest, to the police. A refugee group condemned the decision as illegal. Somalia's Al-Qaeda-linked Al-Shabaab group has carried out a spate of attacks in Kenya in recent years. It was behind the 4-day siege at the Westgate Shopping Center in Nairobi in September, in which 67 people died. Kenyan security officials believe armed groups have used the refugee camps as bases to prepare attacks and then mingled with residents in urban areas to carry them out. Until now, refugees who could support themselves had been allowed to live in urban areas, but the minister has reportedly stated that any refugee found flouting this directive will be dealt with in accordance with the law. Field Marshal Abdel Fattah Al-Sisi has announced that he has resigned as Egypt's military chief in order to run for the presidency. Al-Sisi made the announcement recently on state TV wearing military fatigues. He declared, "I give up the uniform to defend the nation." Field Marshal Al-Sisi led the overthrow of Islamist President Mohamed Morsi in July following mass opposition protests. Al-Sisi is widely popular and is seen by many as the kind of strongman needed to stabilize the troubled country. His announcement came hours after Egypt's interim authorities ordered the prosecution of 919 suspected Islamists, and days after 528 was sentenced to death in a separate case. In a reaction to the announcement, the White House National Security Council spokeswoman Bernadette Meehan in a statement said it did not support individual candidates or parties in Egyptian elections, but urges the Egyptian authorities as the election process moves forward to ensure that the elections are free, fair and transparent, and that all candidates are able to campaign freely without fear of harassment or intimidation, and that the views of all the Egyptian people are fully represented. A Thai satellite has detected some 300 objects in an area of the southern Indian Ocean being searched for missing Malaysia Airlines flight MH370. The images were taken by Thai short satellite March 24th, a day after images from a French satellite allegedly showed 122 floating objects. No debris has been recovered from the ocean so far. Searches by planes were suspended on Thursday because of poor visibility. Recently, Malaysian Prime Minister Najib Razak announced at a news conference that based on new calculations, beyond reasonable doubt, that the plane crashed in southern Indian Ocean with no survivors. Flight MH370 disappeared on March 8th with 239 people on board. Campaigning is now underway in Guinea-Bissau ahead of April 13th presidential and parliamentary elections. The country is trying to move on from 2 years of political crisis following an April 2012 military coup. But the organization of the poll remains a concern. It has been almost 2 years since Guinea-Bissau tried to hold an election. In April 2012, a military coup disrupted the presidential race as it headed to a second-round runoff. There are still concerns of logistical problems ahead. On March 15th, the country's High Court of Justice confirmed 13 presidential candidates for the election, and that gave the country less than a month to have ballots printed. The Electoral Commission has reportedly done a massive biometric voter registration campaign that authorities say covered 95% of voters. An Electoral Commission spokesperson, Katia Lopez, has said that technical preparations are on track, but there are concerns for voting day. She said that not much education campaign has been done in the media about new voting procedures, which could present a problem since it is the first time Bissau Guineans will vote with biometric voter cards. Guinea-Bissau is one of Africa's smallest yet most unstable countries, and there have been repeated coups, mutinies, and political assassinations since independence 40 years ago. And no elected president has ever finished his mandate. Analysts warn that the military remains a destabilizing force in the country. The Nigerian federal government on Wednesday said it supported the United States seizure of $550 million corruption proceeds of former head of state, the late General Sani Abacha, and his associates. The Attorney General of the Federation and Minister of Justice, Mr. Mohammed Adoke, senior advocate of Nigeria, who stated this in a statement in Abuja, said that the federal government would ensure the repatriation of the money to Nigeria and that Nigeria, as state party to the UNCAC, will do all that is required to realize this objective. The U.S. government formally wrote the federal government for assistance to serve forfeiture notice on Abacha's son, Mohammed, and an associate of the late dictator, Atiku Bagudu. The defendants were given up till March 25th to file an application before the U.S. District Court of Columbia to either set aside the forfeiture order or vary it. The defendants forfeited over $550 million and £95 million in 10 accounts and 6 investment portfolios linked to the Abachas in France, Britain, British Virgin Islands, and the United States. The minister said that the federal government applauded the American government's move to recover the proceeds of corruption for the benefit of the people of Nigeria. The U.S. government on March 5th had ordered a freeze of assets stolen by the former dictator and his accomplices. According to Mithili Rahman, Acting Assistant Attorney General, this is the largest civil forfeiture action to recover the proceeds of foreign official corruption ever brought by the department. Former Premier of Turks and Caicos Island, Michael Missick, was recently at a second hearing to review the sufficiency of evidence against him. Chief Justice Edwin Goldsborough found that the Special Investigation and Prosecution Team, SIPT, had enough evidence to commit him to trial. The trial date was not immediately indicated. Misic's bail has been extended, but he is no longer required to report to the police twice a day. He is now required to report only once. And also, each time he leaves Providencial, he must return to his place of residence by 12 midnight and cannot leave before 6 a.m. When ordered to return to court last Friday, Misic was required to provide an affidavit listing all his assets, domestic and foreign. He must also transfer his liquid assets from foreign banks and holding accounts to banks in the Turks and Caicos Islands. He must also list all deposits and withdrawals of $10,000 or more that occurred since July 1, 2005. The charges pending against Misic are conspiracy to collect bribes, misappropriation of government funds, and money laundering. Michael Misic was arrested December 2012 at Santos Dumont Airport in Brazil after being located by Interpol. Misic, who was denied any wrongdoing, resigned on 23 March 2009 after an investigation found clear signs of corruption in Turks and Caicos. Michael Misic was married to American actress and fashion designer Lisa Ray McCoy in 2006, but the couple divorced after about 2 years. Nemotuzumab, a Cuban monoclonal antibody humanized to treat cancer, is registered in 28 countries, mainly in South America, Africa, and Asia, in addition to Cuba. Specialists at the Center of Molecular Immunology, an institution of the BioCuba Pharma Business Group, said that the product had shown its effectiveness in various cases of malignant tumors. Indicated for tumors in the head and neck in advanced stages, brain tumors, and of the esophagus, nemotuzumab is also used in other oncological ailments of colon, rectum, and liver, and in lung cancer, among other locations. At the ongoing NEMO meeting 2014 at the Havana Convention Center, the monoclonal antibody and its results will be the focus. The forum has over 200 experts from about 20 nations, as well as about 20 international biopharmaceutical companies interested in sharing experiences about the medication, the therapeutics of which are used in the medical specialties of oncology, oncopediatrics, radiotherapy, pediatrics, neurosurgery, among others. The Minister of Foreign Affairs and Immigration, Fred Mitchell, has appointed the Bahamas' National Reparations Committee ahead of a formal push by CARICOM heads to get reparations, debt cancellation, and an apology from former European colonizers. During a press conference at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Fred Mitchell announced that former Attorney General Alfred Sears and former Member of Parliament Philip Smith are co-chairs. Mitchell said he expects the committee to present its preliminary research and recommendations by June. He further said the committee will carry out a wide public education campaign as it seeks to illustrate links between historic and modern-day discrimination and outline racial discrimination resulting from slavery in areas of health, education, living conditions, property and land ownership, employment, participation, and migration. Martin Day, the lawyer leading CARICOM's claim, will likely lodge a claim in the International Court of Justice. Mitchell said before CARICOM heads of state make any legal claim, they have agreed to convene a conference with the European countries. The Bahamas and other member states agreed to establish a 10-point plan that would seek a formal apology, some form of debt cancellation, and reparations at a CARICOM heads meeting earlier this month in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. A mudslide hit the city of Oso, Washington State, Saturday when a fraction of a hill collapsed. Residents of the city recounted hearing loud noises when the 20-foot wall of mud hit at about 150 miles per hour. The mud leveled dozens of homes and left at least 25 people dead and 90 more unaccounted for. The people of Oso and neighboring cities are holding a vigil, rallying around consoling the bereaved and hoping for a miracle. President Barack Obama signed a crisis declaration ordering U.S. government aid to supplement state and local assistance efforts. The local disaster relief account had nearly $50,000 in it by Thursday. Governor Jay Inslee stated that in the upcoming weeks and months, state officials will study whether risk assessments for landslide is sufficient. He went on to say that state authorities are looking into ways they can help with housing support for those made homeless by the landslide and hopes for more federal assistance. There is still an ongoing search for survivors. Transparency activist Ryan Shapiro is suing 3 government agencies for failing to comply with Freedom of Information Act requests he filed in an attempt to uncover details about any role the United States played in the 1962 arrest of Nelson Mandela. Shapiro, a doctoral candidate at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, MIT, and a noted FOIA researcher, filed a lawsuit Monday in Washington, D.C. against the U.S. National Security Agency, the Federal Bureau of Investigation, and the Defense Intelligence Agency after his request for details about the anti-apartheid activists were rebuked by the U.S. government. The U.S. has long been rumored to have played an instrumental role in the 1962 arrest of Mandela, and his name remained on a government terror watch list until 2008. That's more than a decade after he completed his term as the first black president of South Africa after spending 27 years in jail. Following Mandela's death last December, Shapiro filed FOIA requests with the NSA, FBI, DIA, and CIA days later in hopes of uncovering evidence about what role the U.S. played with regards to the 62 arrest. In an interview Monday, Shapiro explained that the agencies are in violation of federal law, so he's suing them in order to hold them accountable to federal law. Adding in a statement, he said the records of government are the property of the people, yet unknown billions of pages are needlessly hidden from the American people behind closed doors with classified markings. He further said it's not surprising that those in power wish to keep their actions secret. What's surprising is how readily we tolerate it. Well, this is all the news bits we have for you this week on Fuxion TV. We'll be back with more next time. You can connect with us on Facebook at Fuxion TV ATL and Twitter at Fuxion TV ATL. Until then, stay safe.